what we'll do now is we'll move into our Q&A. So I'll just ask Colin and ZX to kind of turn the cameras on. We'll just kind of ask a handful of questions we've gotten. So we've been combining all the questions from all the multiple channels this is being streamed on. And given sort of the time, I'll ask a few questions. And if we have a lot more that we have to go through, we can just ask all of you to reply to the chat directly and address the questions there. So first question is for ZX. You talked about the ecosystem, and you showed a map of the ecosystem and all the participants in the Filecoin economy. The question is just very general overall, like what's kind of lacking right now in that ecosystem for that to be, I guess, in harmony or equilibrium? And where do you kind of think you can either use help on or more people can sort of come in and make that one particular piece better?
Maybe I can start and Colin can add a bit more if there's any. So I think Filecoin is live, but a protocol is only on the base layer, right? There are lots of things that can be enabled through like things building on the protocol. So we mentioned a couple, right? There are two broad categories, one on the Web2 kind of integration and one on like interacting with the Web3 systems. So in the Web2, I think like financial services could be a big one, because for an average user to interact with like crypto volatility can be pretty daunting, right? For an average user to interact with Filecoin, having that smooth experience matters. And similarly for miners too, like there's token volatility that they have to bear. And the second piece would be like this discovery platforms. I think that's something that's really important for a thriving economy. There's demand, there's supply. How do they meet? And then and can have reputation of that of the supply. And the next layer would be some kind of like data services on top of the base protocol to provide better UX for users. And that's only on Web2-ish kind of things. And then there's like Web3 stuff where cross-chain integration with other like smart contract system. And there's lots of like emerging and lots of new that can be built, like smart contract owning, operating, storage. And then like you have data that posts itself onto another network. And there's lots of creativity that can shine and happen here. I think we'll hear more from like other speakers later today. Anything to add, guys?
Yeah, ZX nailed it. The only thing I would add there is, some incredible developer tooling I think will completely change the game on how many developers can engage and use Filecoin really, really easily. So one of my favorites include PowerGate and some of the work that Fleek has done, but many other implementations of things like that would allow more and more developers to join the ecosystem and use Filecoin without having to know everything that's under the hood.
Awesome. The next question I have is for Colin. For Filecoin Plus, could you tell us where most clients right now are located and sort of that are going to be participating in the network, and sort of how do you think about that growing over time in terms of it spreading out over a wider geographic area?
As always, ZX is more of the expert in most of these questions than me, so I'm going to pass it on to ZX.
Yeah, sounds good. So right now we are in the beta phase of Filecoin Plus. We start to have notaries, Filecoin Foundation being the first notary distributing like notarizing clients from all over the world. We have some in Europe, we have some in North America, we also have some in China. And then we have notaries applying, we have this running program of new notaries entering into the system, bringing in like data demand in the specific region and use cases. So we see like great traction in the Web3 space from Europe and North America. And we also see like lots of Web2 traction in China, Web3 traction in China as well, or the greater Asia region. So really it's the principles of the program is diversity. One of the principles is diversity and decentralization. So like this, and also the demand for storage is sort of like distributed more evenly across the globe. And we expect to see this program continue to evolve and adapt, and we want to move fast, but at the same time, we want to establish all the right principles and processes. And feel free to participate and contribute. It's all public. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Moving on to some questions about EIP 1559. The first question is from so far, how have the miners reacted to this? I mean, just to kind of, in the Ethereum ecosystem, there's definitely a bit of contention between the developers and the miners on this. Have you noticed similar things in the Filecoin ecosystem, or what's been the
Yeah, so the dynamics for Filecoin are pretty different because there's a lot more tokens that are going to miners on Filecoin because they're providing a much greater service than in Ethereum. In Ethereum, they're just doing proof of work to maintain the network and run the transactions live. But in Filecoin, they're also doing all the storage work and so on. So it's a lot more tokens are going towards that. The response has been that big miners are have learned how to tune it and have figured out their cash flows such that they're actually comfortable paying quite a bit to get their onboarding rate in, and they're kind of fighting each other in the network, getting their growth in the right spots. And we've seen kind of before something like much more spiky environments, now it's actually smoothed out. Now the group that this is really hurting is the small miners. The small miners are getting crushed by this at the moment, not because of EIP 1559, it's just the congestion is brutal. So this is a scaling problem. So as Tim Roughgarden's analysis points out, no gas model is going to deal with scaling. It's going to help you solve scaling. So the real issue there is we need to scale the proofs, we need to scale the chain itself, and we need to get to sharding. We are putting an enormous amount of snarks into the chain. It's just Filecoin network is the biggest verifiable computation system on the planet at this point. It is producing and verifying an enormous amount of snarks. We need to push the limit now on making those structures more scalable by doing again verifications of chain, or doing batching and so on, or now just going straight to sharding.
Got it. Super interesting. Yeah, no, you're right. The computational piece is a big element here. Another question, which is something you sort of hinted on in your talk, you kind of talked about there may be another metric other than base fee because how spiky it is. Do you sort of have any thoughts on what that will be, or any ideas around expanding that?
Yeah, so it would still be the base fee, but just smoothed out in some way. So, and that's my very naive statement right now. I haven't looked deeply enough into this and to really tell you whether that we actually want the spikiness or not. It just seems to create some certain kind of just kind of like hiccups. Maybe using some smoothing function like a exponentially weighted moving average or something like that might, which is really easy to calculate and gives you some tuning on how smooth you want it. Might fix it. So that plus like some overestimation amount so that it's smoothly goes up and smoothly comes down. It's still the base fee. It's just kind of smooth potentially. So we might experiment with that. And by the way, I may be saying something totally wrong where if you actually do this, it'll break it. So I haven't looked through this in detail. I'm just pointing out an interesting observation or potential problem.
Makes a lot of sense. And lastly, I'll just have a high level question for Colin, and we'll move on to our next talks. But how do you kind of think about the tooling needed to bring in just the world outside of the crypto audience, or just the Web3 first audience? And how do you think about that sort of partnerships and building the community aside from people who already know what this is and already are aware of all the internal mechanics?
Definitely. I think there's just a huge, immense opportunity there. Like some of the stats that ZX said in his first talk, the amount of data that is being produced by the world and us as humans as a species is tripling in the next 4 years. The percentage of that data that's actually being stored is decreasing. And so there's a tremendous opportunity to impact the Web 2 world. Of course, awareness is a big thing. So trying to get awareness into the hands of developers and folks that have all sorts of data sets and make sure that they're aware of Filecoin. But also, if you think about Filecoin, it's not right to equate it to like Dropbox. It's equated to the infrastructure that Dropbox would run on. And so we need those kind of like seamless applications where you can enter a credit card and you can store your data in an interface that is very familiar to you as an enterprise or consumer, and you don't have to worry about what's under the hood, right? And we're not there yet. That's the kind of developer tooling that we need to track the Web 2 space, is to be able to use Filecoin without understanding all the nitty gritty details that we've explained today. It just works. And so that's a major kind of priority for developer tooling and all sorts of tooling in the first half of next year.
Awesome. So that's super close, and we're looking forward to all of that going mainstream. So with that, we'll move on to the next set of talks. So Juan, Colin, ZX, thank you so much for kicking us off today with 3 amazing deep dives into the Filecoin economy.